All right, now we are officially recording. Thank you for taking the time to attend the webinar. I know everyone is busy and kind of taking some time out of your day isn't always easy. Um, the last two webinars ran a little long, so we're going to try and keep this a little bit shorter, try and be as high impact. I said this last time, but try and be as high impact as possible in a short amount of time, and I'll also answer any questions along the way. So there should be some mechanism for asking questions on your end if I maybe leave something out. At this point, we should be pretty smooth. So there shouldn't be any gaps. But you know what? If you have any questions, we always get new questions that come up or any feedback. So that's fine. I like taking time to answer those throughout the presentation. So Broadstreet's ad formats, you've probably seen us really kind of trumpet them in the newsletter, on the Facebook group, Broadstreet community. If you're not already a member of Broadstreet community, it's a pretty useful group to be a member of on Facebook, and all over the place. We generally show everyone our ad formats, and it all comes down to this one question: why does Broadstreet make all these high impact ad formats? Are we just building one-offs that we're trying to sell publishers? Not really, because we always see ourselves as partners for the publishers that are our customers. Broadstreet's kind of grew out of Red Bank Green, which is a hyperlocal publisher in Red Bank, New Jersey. We're totally independent at this point, but we still maintain a pretty tight relationship with Red Bank Green. And a lot of our ideas come from Red Bank Green, and a lot of the proving of our ad ideas happen on Red Bank Green first before we take some of our ideas public. And it all comes down to this question. We try and solve this problem for Red Bank Green. What makes you better when you're trying to make an ad sale? So your advertisers have a lot of people calling them on the phone, knocking on their door, trying to sell advertising or some sort of marketing product. They have a ton of people. What makes the hyperlocal publisher better? And it's a difficult question to answer. And there are usually these classic differentiators. Some publishers say that their audience, they have the community and the people reading their site, and they have a great audience, and it's not like the other guys in town. Whether that's true or not, they say they have the content quality. They have incredible content quality that can't be surpassed. They go deeper. They have better coverage than the poor editor working for the struggling patch that this isn't that relevant anymore, but who has to pump out 10 articles a day. Some publishers say their content quality is the best, and that's where an advertiser's advertisement should go. Relationship with advertisers, a lot of publishers, they end up being a technical resource for their customers. And that's a very powerful relationship, and that's kind of hard to break. So that's a great differentiator. If you're a publisher who also works with your advertisers and kind of builds a relationship, that's a very common way of building sales and maintaining relationships with clients. And alongside that, some of the best ad salespeople work with their advertisers directly to figure out, okay, what are some of the upcoming promotions? What are some of your goals? What do you really want to? What kind of word do you want to get out? And then the ad product. So what are you actually trying to sell? All right. So if you're an agency and you're selling, Google AdWords marketing, basically you're selling banner ads. If you're a publisher or hyperlocal publisher, in many cases, you're still just selling standard banner ads. And a lot of people are selling standard banner ads. And banner ads, unfortunately, don't perform very well. They're actually quite dismal in their performance. So if that's what you're selling, ultimately, you're going to have to go back and try and get that advertiser to renew, which is kind of hard to do if the ad didn't perform very well, and then the advertiser doesn't understand some of the metrics that you give them in terms of the performance of the ad. So the actual thing that you're selling, you have the publication, you have the audience, you have the content, but the actual thing that you're selling, meaning the ad or whatever it is, that has to be impressive. It has to be something that the advertiser actually wants to buy or thinks will actually work, and something that will be proven to have worked at the end of the campaign. And then some publishers, differentiate on price. Whereas the established legacy newspaper in town has really high rates. Maybe the hyperlocal publisher, who's kind of a one-man show, or has a small staff, can afford to sell at a much lower rate. So that's not always a great place to compete on pricing. Usually you want to maximize the price, because the news industry, trying to keep its revenue relatively stable. So usually you don't want to really compete on price. So here's where it gets real for Broadstreet. We believe that banner ad technology has totally stagnated, and there's a reason for that. And my background is at Yahoo on Right Media's ad exchange. So I kind of saw how advertising was being or how ad platforms were being developed on the national level. And all of the innovation tends to be in the actual ad delivery. So a lot of people have heard about programmatic exchanges, and there's this incredible emphasis on optimizing the delivery of the ad. So who is that ad actually going in front of? Are we getting the right audience? And the problem is the click-through performance, or the metrics that you get back after a campaign, they're still awful. So we have all this innovation and all this, debatably artificial intelligence going into these ad platforms, which are more effectively targeting audiences, but you're just eking out, 0.05% extra click-through rate, right? And the average click-through rate on the internet is 0.01%. And on the high end, that's the lowest estimate. On the high end, it's 0.05 or 0.06%, right? That's absolutely dismal. Now, by contrast, Broadstreet's ad formats, when we started experimenting with some of these high impact ad formats, we're getting, at the minimum 0.25%, getting closer to 0.5%. So we're seeing click-through rates that are like, 2 to 3, in some cases 10 times more performant than the ad. So it's amazing to us that the ad industry in general is really focusing on the delivery of the ad, trying to eke out small percentage points of extra performance, when all they ever really had to do was make an ad that didn't suck, and they could have had 5 times the performance out of the ad. But there's a reason that happens. There's a reason that you don't see high performing creatives on a national level. It's because of programmatic, and it's because of exchanges. In order for ad space and advertising and money to be traded with fluidity, there has to be a standard ad. All right. So this is why we have standard ad sizes like IAB banners, 300 by 250s, 728 by 90s. All right. They're all the same thing. So they can all be traded. If a publisher has a 300 by 250 slot, they can run a 300 by 250 ad, and anybody that has a 300 by 250 slot can run a 300 by 250 ad. So you see that the actual advertisement has to be standardized, and unfortunately, in most cases, it's just a standard static banner ad. So we're on the this is all on the internet. All right, the internet has given us Facebook, Google, all these amazing, powerful things. We have HTML5, CSS, JavaScript, which are progressing by the year. You can do more. The amount you can do in a browser now is incredible. Things that only used to be possible with low-level. There are certain graphics you can run in a browser now that only used to be possible if you're running on actual hardware. So the point is, the internet is an amazing place that has so much potential, and we're still running standard banner ads in most cases. So we kind of see this as an interesting advantage for hyperlocal publishers or anybody doing direct sales. Most publishers have total autonomy over their publication. So if they want to run something non-standard, if they really want to differentiate themselves, they want to run something non-standard and impress an advertiser, they can absolutely do that. So it's really about appealing to the advertiser's ego and giving them something that they haven't seen before, and making your offering much more attractive than any boosted post on Facebook or any any ad buy they could make across Google AdWords, because they get the $50 to $100 AdWords credit in the mail too. So you really want to step out and have something different that's going to help them meet their goals and something that's ultimately going to perform. So our focus is really on the creative. What could digital advertising be? It should be something that captures attention, all right, for the end reader. It's got to be informational, all right. So it's got to actually, make a point or get the user to engage with it. It's got to be impressive, all right. So when you show up and you're going to make the sale, you kind of want your client to be impressed. If you just show them a 300 by 250 banner ad, they've seen a million of those before. All right, you want something that you haven't seen before, and then you want the advertisement to be reportable. You don't really want to go back with some mysterious click number like, hey, you got 100 clicks, but nobody knows where those clicks came. It's just a number. I mean, you might as well just say you got 120 or 1,000 clicks. You have no data to really back it up other than the fact that the ad platform said it got 100 clicks. Ideally, advertising could be dynamic. So it could be something that changes. Most advertising on the internet, when you run a campaign, it just sits there. It's the same ad that runs for 6 months or 3 months, whatever the term is. And we know that when a new ad or a new campaign goes live, the click-through rate is great the first week, and then it just dips off. And if you keep the ad updated, or if you keep changing the creative, you are going to see a consistently high click-through rate. So we think that advertising can stay real time and up to date. The other thing is that advertising should be turnkey. It should be relatively simple to update your ads, and it doesn't necessarily have to require a designer. So let's take a quick look at some of the ad formats. So if you haven't seen it before, we have on Broadstreet's information site, the ad formats. We have all of our different ad formats here that we list out, and you can actually click into each one and see how they, for example, if you click into the sneaker here, see that the sneaker comes up, so you can get an example of how that works. You can just see the different options here. The Amazing Cube, this is an example of an ad that has really gotten a lot of traction with advertisers. It sells incredibly well. I don't really know why. We kind of built it as a proof of concept using some of the latest features in HTML5 and CSS, and advertisers go absolutely crazy over it. Advertisers go absolutely crazy over it, and they sell really well. We have some people who have 10 cubes in their sidebar, and if you think that's really busy, it is. So the Amazing Cube is an example of something that advertisers haven't seen before. I was surprised when it sold so well, but it's really just, it's kind of a captivating thing, and it's not a standard banner ad. So when you click into an ad, by the way, when you go down, you can see the summary. We'll give you the summary, event tracking, kind of like the setup and inputs. We'll create an example ad later so everyone can see how easy these things are to create. And then at the very bottom, if something you wanted to integrate into an online media kit, maybe you have a page on your site dedicated to some of this advertising, we have an area for embedding an example in your media kit. There are a couple different ways to do that. So why would you want to, I've already kind of talked about the benefits of some of these ad formats, but why would you really want to use some of these ad formats? Well, for one, number one, we've already talked about differentiation. So you're a lot different than other people selling ads to the same advertiser off the bat. The other thing is that a lot of publishers like to use these as a reason to increase their pricing. So maybe their standard banner is $300 a month, but they want to charge, the Amazing Cube, they want to bill for $500 a month. And some publishers that works. It's also a great reason to repitch. So if you're only peddling banner ads for your advertisers, maybe there's you come around every holiday season to repitch them, but there isn't really any other good reason to repitch your advertiser. If you call them up for an appointment, in February, and ultimately they said no to the banner ad, what's going to be different in March? So a lot of publishers use our products, the different products, as a reason to kind of create a new appointment and pitch the advertiser something new. So there is something new that the advertiser might be interested in. And the great thing is a lot of these don't even require a designer. So you can create them. You can actually mock them up. It takes about 2 minutes, and you mock it up and you go in, you can show the advertiser, you can show them the ad before they buy it, which most publishers can't do. Most ad sales people can't do that. They have to, nobody wants to pay for the designer to create an ad uh, before they actually sell the ad. So with these, a lot of cases, all you need is a couple images. You found a Google Images and maybe the advertiser's logo. The other thing is that they're easy to create. So like I said, it takes about 2 minutes. I'm going to show you an example. Somebody already asked about the 10th Ave Burrito tab on the top right. That is relevant to this presentation, by the way. And we're going to create an ad for 10th Ave Burrito. It's one of my favorite burrito shops in the part of New Jersey that Broadstreet is based in. And we're gonna create an ad for 10th Ave Burrito. We're gonna do it in about a minute. So a lot of these ads don't require sidebar or header space, and I'm actually going to show you, and they also work on mobile, and I'm actually going to show you at the end of this presentation what I think is probably the most important ad format that Broadstreet's ever created. So I know that's kind of a sweeping statement. It's kind of lofty, but I think it is not only my favorite, but I think it's going to have the biggest impact on publishers. So that's something I'm saving for the end of the presentation. I've gotten a lot of good feedback. And whether your feedback's good, bad, maybe you tell me it's terrible, it'll never work. That's, I like to hear that stuff too, because, there's usually a lot of interesting points made in those kind of comments. Advertising can be real time and social, and we'll see that actually on our ad formats page, we have some of these ads, if you've noticed. We have the instant text message ad, instant Twitter, instant Facebook. All right, these are ads that actually update dynamically. So instant Facebook, for example, tracks the advertiser's Facebook page and gets the latest, and it builds in some of the comments. And if we click on this, that was just an image, but here's the latest from Rook Coffee. The best days are spent outdoors, Earth Day. And it's just a simple ad, but it updates every hour and pulls the latest from Rook Coffee's Facebook page. And we also have a version for Instagram. Rook is actually a little bit bigger on Instagram. Oh, same thing. So it looks like they cross-posted. So this is real time. It's social. We talked about those click-through rates, how they decline as the campaign goes on. So this keeps those click-through rates high, just naturally. And then at some point, at what point is an advertisement information? Let me go back to that page again. So, if, in this case, Rook's talking, I'm looking for a good example, but in this case, Rook is talking about, it's kind of more of a promotional post, but sometimes they post specials and they post deals and things like that. Or they're just posting events, or 10th Ave Burrito will post about who they're having in on a Saturday night, for some live music. And at some point, like that's not really necessarily promotion anymore. It's just, some people really want to know that stuff. So we're really trying to blur the lines between advertising and information. And ultimately, these ads perform much better than your standard banner ads. The click-through rates are way higher, and we'll talk about the click-through rates on the next slide. We'll give you deep analytics, so we'll see some of the reporting that you get out of these ads. And then you're not limited to banner ads. We keep talking about banner ads and ad formats, but we have one and air quotes sponsored content tracker. We have one air quote ad that is actually a sponsored content tracker, and that's all it does. So a lot of publishers, an increasingly large part of their business is coming from sponsored content, and this ad actually sits in the sponsored content and tracks the user's engagement and tracks some metrics that Google Analytics doesn't track. So did the user read the entire article? What words did they highlight? How many social shares did the content get? Just, all those kinds of metrics that are very relevant to renewing with an advertiser, or at least reporting. Those are built in the sponsored content tracker. And then the newsfeed ad, I don't think I called it a newsfeed ad before, but this is the big thing that I'm saying that I'll demo at the end of this presentation. And lastly, they're updatable by the client. So your clients can log in, update their own ads. They don't have to talk to you. You don't have to get a designer to recreate the ad or anything like that. They can log in and update. And ultimately, it's just about helping publishers win the sale. We want to help them get there first. So we want to help, provide some mechanism that you can create an ad quickly, have something in hand when you meet with the advertiser. We want you to impress the advertiser, something they haven't seen. And with Broadstreet's ad serving, you can actually preview the ad on the site without anyone else seeing it. So you can show them exactly where their ad's going to live on the site. And obviously, if the advertisers can update their own ads, they have the option to let their client. You have the option to let your clients change their promotion mid-campaign. So, maybe Valentine's Day passes, and now they're thinking about Mother's Day or Father's Day or graduation, whatever it is, whatever their goal is, they can log in and they can kind of tune their own ad. And then lastly, the reporting is very important. I think Broadstreet probably provides the most detailed metrics for advertising available right now. So I'll show you some of the metrics that we have available. This is a great example of an ad that is, let's just say you see somebody, this is 10th Ave Burrito again. Obviously I like this place a lot, but this is a great example of an ad that when 10th Ave Burrito was opening they were expanding and there was a new location opening. And it makes a lot of sense when you see a new business opening to pitch the advertiser, because ultimately they're going to want to attract attention for their grand opening. They want to let people know they're in town. And in this case, we had the countdown ad. We built a countdown ad specifically for that case. It'll just count down until the days till the grand opening. There was a ton of hype surrounding 10th Ave Burrito. So we built the countdown ad, and what better way to walk in the front door with an advertiser you've never really met before than to have something like this ready to go. Just show them what they could have. Clearly, you're interested in promoting the success of their business and the success of their grand opening. You have it right there. No other salespeople are doing that. All right, you're the only one who's doing that. And this click-through rate, the click-through rate on this ad, you'd see the click-through rates on these different ads. This click-through rate, okay, it doesn't quite match up here. That's the older click-through rate. As this is the most recent click-through rate over the last month. So for each ad. So I since updated it from that last slide, but the roadblock ad gets a click-through rate of about 2.7%, which is outstanding, but it's also because as soon as you come to the site, it jumps up in your face. So obviously that's going to have a high click-through rate. You have the YouTube ad pop-up, which is very similar. The YouTube ad, wallpaper expandable. I won't go through all of them, but they all have very, very high click-through rates. The Amazing Cube has 0.34%. So you can see that, that's much, much higher. That's like 5 times higher, if not a little more than the standard banner ad, the high estimate for a standard banner ad on the internet. Countdown, before, after, etc. And then some of our new ad formats, I didn't list them in that table because it's way too soon to tell, but instant Twitter, instant Instagram, they're getting something like 4 or 5% click-through rates, which is way higher. That you can't expect that to last forever because they're relatively new. A lot of people are clicking on them naturally, but over time, we'll probably see them flatten out and settle at whatever their regular click-through rate is going to be. But you can see that they are capturing attention because they're new and they're relevant and they have some of that social information that is actually very interesting. All of this, a lot of our ad formats, not all of them, but a lot of them get packaged into Broadstreet Express, which you may have heard about. A lot of publishers are demoing Broadstreet Express. If you're not on Express, when you log in, you probably see this big Express banner on the top right. It shimmers, so it's kind of hard to notice. If you click on that, then you'll get the Express trial. Broadstreet Express is where we're putting all of our best stuff. On Broadstreet Express, all of these ad formats, there's no extra price. The problem with our current tier, the light tier, is that all of these extra ad formats have their own monthly pricing. A lot of customers get confused over what the pricing is going to be. And Broadstreet Express, there's a few different goals behind it. One is to simplify the pricing. 2 is to support our customers a lot better. And it's kind of a cliche that anytime a company makes like a big move, they say, oh, it's to better support our customers. This really is about better supporting our customers because we have, I would say, really good support, especially compared to our competitors who have pretty much no support. We have pretty good support. A lot of times support requests are either answered by me or somebody who's contracted to answer support requests. But we've also noticed that 90% of support requests come from people who ultimately don't end up becoming long-term customers on Broadstreet. People kicking tires and things like that, and or just generally small accounts. We want to get people in a place where we can have them a year-long contract, offer them great support, dedicated support, and also not. We don't want them to feel like we're nickel and diming them for every ad. So Broadstreet Express is all going to get put into a single tier. Its official price is $200 a month. When we launch, it's going to be very short amount of time. We're going to launch it and offer it at $150 a month. That's for all of our existing customers. There was a lot of concern over the pricing, and I totally understand it. There's also a lot of pricing that goes into the development of the infrastructure that supports a lot of these ad formats, delivers them, tracks the metrics. We have a lot of machines in the cloud to run all of this stuff, and we have to support it. So a webinar schedule for Express is coming in May. We do have one on May 3rd. I'm not sure if you saw on the site, but there will be some webinars for that too if you want to see the full details of Express. So I've talked a lot. It's time to actually talk about some of the ads that we have. The first thing I will show, let's just create an ad really quick. Let me open the Sandbox site. Okay, so here's our demo page. What we're going to do, as promised, I promised somebody that we would actually use 10th Tab Burrito in this presentation. So 10th Tab Burrito, favorite place, such a great example for, that's a good ad. So, or that's a good post. Take a look at this. This will be relevant later. 10th Tab Burrito has 13,300 people who like their page. All right, those are 13,300 people who probably should see something related to 10th Tab Burrito showing up in their newsfeed every now and then. They got 8 likes on this. I'm not going to crunch the numbers right now, but it seems like that's a pretty low engagement count. And it's because Facebook has a newsfeed algorithm that dictates what users see and what they don't see. And I'm sure if 10th Tab Burrito wanted to boost their post, they would see their engagement skyrocket. But for a business like this, they probably can't afford to boost their post every single post. So 10th Tab Burrito, it's a great picture, a great update, just falling on deaf ears. 8 people. 13, that would be frustrating for me as an advertiser. But you know what? We get that at Broadstreet too, so we kind of understand the pain. So 10th Tab Burrito, let's solve all their problems. So we're inside Express. Like I said, if you don't have Express, you can just click Express on the top right when you log in to Light. We're going to create a new advertisement. All right, and you'll see that we have a lot of different ads, and if we click on this Express exclusive category, we'll see there's a sponsored content tracker I mentioned before. If you're into real estate or you have a lot of real estate agents, obviously they have marketing budgets, and it makes sense for them to advertise because the payoff is pretty big. Slide in, drag drop. We have some pretty creative stuff that we haven't seen before. Sometimes we build things just because they're fun. Ad of the day, different ad every day. That was a highly requested one. Sneaker, etc. Well, anyway, let's just go to the top. Let's create an ad from somebody's Facebook feed. Instant Facebook. Search for that. Create an instant Facebook ad. 10th Tab Burrito. All right, and then we're just going to paste in. Get rid of that. So we're going to just paste that in. This is all we need. These are the fields. When you go to create an instant Facebook field, you can see that we have some different options. We can set the width of the ad. So it doesn't have to be 300 pixels wide. It could be 500, 1,000. It'll probably be 20,000 if you want it to be. Or if you have a 200 pixel wide sidebar, you just set 200 here, 200 pixels. That's all you'd have to do. You can set default images. There's some other options you can play around with. But ultimately, everything has a sensible default. And all you have to do is click create advertisement, and see what happens. So what we're basically doing is telling Broadstreet to create an ad from that Facebook page and keep it updated. So this probably takes about 30 seconds because we're pulling stuff in from all over the place. If you are, that was quick. If you are familiar with Broadsheet's old product, editable ads, which is very similar, this is a totally revamped system. We had some reliability issues after running editable ads for like 3 years. So as with anything, you build something the first time, you get a lot of insight in how to build it better the second time. So this is version 2.0, and this is I think I think this is the optimal way to build what we've built. And it took 3 years to get all the knowledge to figure all that stuff out. But here it is. Here's the ad. So I think it looks nice. If I want to run it on our sandbox site, I'll just run it in that right sidebar, hit create campaign. Should be in business. All right, let's go to our, boom, there we go, sidebar. So, if you wanted to really, this is all we needed was the Facebook URL, and we got the images. Imagine just walking into 10th Tab Rita and saying like, hey, look, you want to advertise, I can get you some good exposure. A lot of your posts, nobody sees them, and they will definitely see them on my site. So, this is, without a doubt, it's very visible. It's very informational. It's not so much an ad. And we don't have them here, but we do have them on the ad formats archive page. We can see that on this instant Facebook ad, at least in this example, in Rook Coffee, some of the best marketing that a local advertiser can get actually just comes by word of mouth, right? So seeing the kind of the customers of Rook who love Rook, they kind of have a big fan base, just showing up in the ad there. That's pretty powerful. You see the engagement. A lot of people love that stuff. So that kind of speaks more to Rook than the actual ad itself does. So anyway, we saw how easy that was, but I kept talking about like how these things perform really well, and you could get all these kind of metrics. When we talk about metrics for our ad formats, if we click into them, let's go to one that actually has some good metrics. YouTube's a great example. So the YouTube pop-up is an ad that it kind of looks like a YouTube video, but when you click on it, and you would be amazed how many people click on things that look like YouTube videos. So click on that, video starts playing. How many advertisers do you have that have some promotional video sitting around on YouTube with like 100 views? A lot of people pay to have some, company produce that video, and then no one ever sees it. Where are they going to run it? So YouTube ad has been very popular for running those promotional videos. So if you can find the video, all you have to do is apply the YouTube URL. It pulls in all the data, creates an ad from it. And we track some events, like how many times did the video load? How many times did it play, pause? How many people watched 25% or 50%, 75%, and the information. So I will show you, this is Broadstreet's promotional account. So all of the demo ads that we create that sit on our site everywhere, they all come back to this account. So they collect some data. When people are playing around with it, they get clicks and things like that. So here's the YouTube ad sitting on our dashboard. Got that. Now let's take a look at the analytics. We have advanced reporting up here. Click on advanced reporting, and now you have this nice little dashboard to show you how the ad's been performing over time. And then we have custom events. So we have those custom events listed on the information page, but we have click, load, pause, plays, watch 25%. So it doesn't look like anyone got past the 50%, probably because it's a video they've already watched, or, well, that's really not the reason that they're not watching that video, they're just playing with the ad. So ultimately, 18 people clicked through. Where did they come from? Now, this is where normally most ad servers stop at this. They just tell you 18 clicks. You're good. Go back and renew your ad. Well, what if you could tell them exactly where those clicks came from? Now, Broadstreet is kind of like, debatably an international company. We have customers all over the place. So we're going to get a lot of different clicks from a lot of different places. You'd be surprised that when it comes to a hyperlocal publisher, about 80 to 90% of the clicks and engagement actually come from the town that the publication is in. Now, is there anything that speaks more to the performance of an ad and to that number? Because, like I said before, that number could have been anything. You could have said, oh, you got 1,000 clicks, you got 200 clicks. It doesn't matter. That number is so mysterious. So we legitimize those clicks by showing exactly where they came from. We show you the internet service provider. We actually have IP data too, but we decided we're not going to show that just because it's a little more sensitive and for security reasons. So anyway, so you have this whole report here showing you exactly where those clicks came from, and also for any other kind of engagement. All right, that one person who watched 25%, who is that? All right, they came from Johannesburg. All right, interesting. I guess they were interested in the video. All the people that played, a lot of them from Red Bank, New Jersey, where Broadstreet's based. So it's probably us playing around with it. And then finally, you can set the date range up here, but you want to send this to your actual advertiser too, right? So click Get Downloadable Report. All right, so these reports, this logo this is just because it's Broadstreet's account. You can set your logo. So all of these reports are white labeled. And as we go down the report, you can see it's pretty much got the same graph, formatted a little bit differently. We highlight good click-through rates and call them out and say, like, this performed really well automatically for you. Show where some of those events came from, the extended event counts, put that all into a thing. Now, if you want to send this to your advertiser, you got two options. You can export it to a PDF, and it looks just the same. But what we're going to do is we're just going to, right here, just email it to somebody. We can add an email address down here if we want to. I'm just going to click email to myself. And we'll see what happens. This is my inbox. Get rid of that. Sneak peek at Kenny's inbox. So when we see this number pop up to 1, we know that the report was done generating. So that was basically, advertiser asks you for a report. You want to send it to them real quick. Maybe that's it. Advertisement report house. Click on it. So if you were Red Bank Green, it would say Red Bank Green up here. If you were Potomac Local, it would say Potomac Local. Whatever the name of your publication is, your logo would be prominently displayed up here. And same with the PDF that's attached. So it says a detailed PDF report has been created for house. So I attach this email as a PDF document, and this is the time range. Click that, and now you got your PDF. Pretty much exactly what we saw on the web interface. Formatted slightly differently. PDF generation for dynamic content is fun. And so here you go. You got the PDF, and that was painless. And you can have these automatically sent out with Broadstreet Express too. So we saw the analytics, we saw the reporting. I think it makes sense to check on any questions. And this was actually from a few minutes ago. I saw this or a few minutes ago, probably like 10 or 15 minutes ago. How often should we recommend advertisers update their ads? A range. Well, it's really, I would just say in most cases, just letting them do what they normally do is great because, they're probably updating their Facebook page or their Twitter feed or Instagram page, pretty regularly anyway. So, I mean, I think just telling the advertiser, like, hey, just keep doing what you're doing, we'll do the rest is a nice strategy. Some advertisers do have to be reminded to update their Facebook page. It's not really your problem, but it does become your problem. So some publishers have to remind them, like, hey, look, your Facebook page is important, your social media presence is important. You have to keep updating. So that, that does happen sometimes. Are editable ads as we know them going away? So I would say, like, ideally, if I could just get rid of them 100%, I would do it tomorrow. But I understand obviously that our publishers rely on them. And what I'd rather do is actually create a format that uses our version 2 engine for editable ads and just replaces the current version of editable ads. Current version of editable ads, it was awesome for what it did, but it just created more problems than we really imagined. So there are a lot of different moving parts to it. They were unreliable. It was kind of hard to tell. It was very opaque. Whenever an ad wasn't updating, figuring out why it wasn't updating was actually very difficult because there were a lot of systems that didn't really communicate very well. So that's just like the the technical end of it. So basically, if an ad didn't update, we didn't know why, and we had to go do some deep digging and try and replicate the parameters. And it just sounds like a headache, and it was. So this new system, if an ad doesn't update, we can tell you exactly why. It updates reliably. There's never any sometimes an unrecognized emoji would crash the old editable ads. And with our new system, we support all emojis. Anything that the internet supports, we can support. So I would like to get rid of editable ads and just, that's just a headache from the past, but I won't get rid of them immediately. And if we do have publishers who are really dependent on them, then we'll happy to keep them around. Does Facebook ads take up much more space than the standard 300 by 250 ads, don't they? Our website's charging more for them. Yes, they can, because part of the thing is about a 300 by 250 is that it's a standard size ad format. So that anything that is 300 by 250 sized just naturally, you don't even have to see something, directly. You can actually just see it out of the corner of your eye. If it's 300 by 250 pixels wide, it looks like an ad. So the thing is, we don't want people to actually think of them as ads anymore. And when they're non-standard in height, then it doesn't really fit that mold of an ad. So if publishers are charging more because they're taking up more real estate, I think that makes total sense. I mean, do whatever makes you more money. That's that's why we're building this stuff, and we want to give publishers a way to charge their clients more without just simply raising their prices. I mean, previously, if you wanted to raise your prices, you either had to you could make the argument that you're getting a lot more traffic and show people the Google Analytics. Or you can just say hey, we're just raising our prices because we have too much demand, which is not a very common case in hyperlocal. So, if you're offering a new product that's a lot more powerful and performs a lot better, then yeah, I think it makes sense to charge more. All right, next question. In the new system, are the Facebook updating ads going to be the same height? So, not really. So the Facebook updating ads are all variable height because it depends on what content the actual publisher put in them. So fixed heights just don't work very well with dynamic advertising, because the advertiser can enter as much text as they want, and we can cut it off at some point, but depending on the font and the line spacing and all kinds of things, getting them to be the same exact height every time would be a huge challenge, and it would actually create a lot of problems from an HTML and CSS standpoint. So it's something we try to avoid. We try to really use variable, heights to our advantage. And that's also part of your advantage. If you're selling a 300 by 250, like I said in the beginning, everyone's selling the 300 by 250. If you're selling something different, I mean, this is a lot more attractive than a 300 by 250 banner ad. I don't care what is in a 300 by 250 banner ad. This looks better. I'm asking because that's actually a great point. So rotating zones, if you're using rotating zones, that's where things get funky. So rotating zones won't work very well with these banner ads. So it is kind of there's no way to really fix the height. So the page is definitely going to jump around a bit. There are probably ways to work around that outside of Broadstreet. So you could wrap the ad unit in a fixed height div that's web coding, and just have it rotate inside there. But at that point, it might be kind of troublesome. So if rotating is if that's something you'd really want to keep around, there are creative solutions there. If the advertiser can vary the height by having a longer Facebook post, isn't it in the advertiser's best interest to game that in order to get a bigger ad? I mean, that may be true, but I think that's actually going a little far into an advertiser's I don't think they're so sneaky and conniving that they're really just trying to get the biggest ad on the page. I mean, if there is one, that's crazy, but I think most of them are just going to post what they normally post without thinking that their ad's going to be bigger or smaller on the publisher's page. But we can also set a character limit, so you can keep too much from showing up in that ad. It was a nice thing about editable ads is that everything did have a fixed height, but it was also extremely difficult to work with because sometimes we'd have publishers, we'd have advertisers who wanted things on different lines, or like, it wasn't getting formatted correctly because we're cramming a bunch of stuff into a small amount of space. Sometimes the text wasn't showing up because it was impossible to display that much text in that sort of space. So I would say the problems that we have with version 2, which there really aren't many, certainly lesser than the problems we had with version 1. So I think it is something new to work around and to think about, especially if you're using rotation. But for the most part, I think it'll be very beneficial. And then, is there a hashtag that triggers updates in 2.0 ads? So we actually removed the concept of hashtag filtering. That used to be a thing that for editable ads 1.0, where we only pulled in updates that had a certain hashtag. We kind of got rid of that, and I figured that I would bring it back only by popular demand. So if there's popular demand, then we'll bring it back. But right now, it doesn't support the hashtag. Is the $100 fixed rate, or is the minimum? So the 150 is a minimum. We can't do fixed rate because obviously, like, our service is metered. So if somebody has a huge spike in traffic, that means a huge spike in traffic for us, and in turn a spike in our monthly bill from the provider of our tech infrastructure. So it works sort of the same as the light tier works. Right now, the light tier is totally metered, meaning that if you serve 1 million ads, you pay $10. All right, and you serve $2 million. If you serve 2 million ads, you pay $20, right? So the amount you serve is proportional to the cost you pay at the end. Broadstreet Express is pretty much the same thing, only there's a $150 minimum charge, and there's a 1-year contract involved. So and that will, like I said, that like guarantees that we have the bandwidth to support our customers and pay for the infrastructure and all that kind of stuff. Because right now, also from Broadstreet, just being totally transparent from our perspective, revenue prediction, just figuring out like, okay, what are we going to make in the next quarter? What are we going to do this year? Is really hard when you have when you're 100% metered, because maybe people start serving less ads. Like like our revenue is like essentially tracks the internet traffic of hyperlocal publishers, which is kind of crazy. So and on top of that, that makes it really hard to hire people, makes it really hard to give awesome support, which I think we offer pretty good support. But I would like to actually step that up as opposed to stepping it down like a lot of our competitors do. But that also kind of involves a monthly contract. So that's what the pricing is all about. It's 150 minimum, and then the metered pricing. So if the metered pricing goes over 150, then that just ends up being what you pay. And all the ad formats are free. So in some cases, some publishers might actually end up paying less than their current paying, even with the minimum pricing. So I think that was. Let me take a look. I didn't go into all of the ad formats, but creating, let me just make sure I don't have any other questions. I'll answer that one at the end. All right, so I can't go into all the ad formats, and I'm not sure anybody really wants me to anyway. But if you check out the ad formats page, you can see all the different types. Some of them are really interesting. And some of them are catered to specific use cases, such as the real estate gallery. Before and after is probably good for contractors or dentists or all kinds of stuff. In-story ads, the flipper. This is the first ad we ever put out. Very simple. Just click on that, flips. That's all it does. So one of our publishers used that as like a game. So out of all the ads on their site, every Tuesday or whatever it was, there'd be an ad that flips over. And it was kind of a contest, and it would say like, you win whatever it is, email the publisher at this link. So that was kind of fun. And just like a lot of different fun ideas or ads that you could use specifically for something like, in this case, a grocery store, click to enlarge. The circular, this like hardly even looks like an ad. It just says click to enlarge. The click-through rate is just through the roof on it, and the user gets the information. So I think what I'm going to do now, this is the listing table. I have this for movie theater times. One upcoming ad is for movie theaters. It actually pulls in the movie times. It stays updated with the movie times for almost any theater in the country. So that's something I didn't mention on any other webinars. That's coming. It's kind of exciting. Hopefully, most people only have like one or two movie theaters around, if that. So hopefully they're impressed by the movie theater ad that always has their latest times because they've probably never seen that before. So that'll be a pretty cool ad. So anyway, let's go to the ad that I said was my favorite ad of all time. We're almost out of time. I didn't even really want it to go an hour, but it seems like everyone's pretty much stuck with us. So we'll try and wrap this up, but I want to show you guys this first. And before I do this, so if no hashtag, do all the posts by the advertiser get pulled into the feed on our site? Yes, all the posts by the advertiser get pulled into the feed. So that's the default behavior now. I didn't think the hashtag was a cool idea. I just don't, when really thinking about it, I just don't know how much that really mattered. Some advertisers did kind of use it, but most of the time that they're putting something out on social media, they kind of want as many people to know about it as possible. So that was our kind of thinking, and so we didn't do any hashtag filtering. So okay, all right. This is the newsfeed ad. Okay, this ad, and before you draw any assumptions, just take a look at it. It's actually a newsfeed that displays, just like the instant ads, the latest posts that the users have made on social media. So it can come from Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, SMS. Each advertiser can have their own update mechanism, and they get pulled into this newsfeed that docks to the right side of the page. So you can jam as many advertisers as you want in here, and it becomes a sort of a social newsfeed, right? So it's really powerful because it doesn't require any inventory. You can put as many advertisers in here as you want. In fact, they don't even have to be advertisers. They could be the Board of Education or the municipality or anybody. You could, let's just say you wanted to start using this newsfeed. You could just throw those in there as kind of like public service announcements, and then start filling it in with advertisers. It's reverse chronological, so meaning the latest posts go to the top. There are some questions surrounding that. What if you have one advertiser who posts a little bit more? We'll have solutions for that. We'll also make it possible for you to randomize them, but I think the reverse chronological makes the most sense because it's the most manageable for the user. Now, you may be thinking, okay, this is great. It's great for desktop, but what about mobile? All right, so I got you covered. And let me go to webinar thing out of my and let me also just change the orientation of this. Okay. So this is what the same newsfeed looks like on mobile. All right. You have this down here, the scrolling marquee. So it actually goes through the updates every few seconds. That'll be configurable. And it's the same updates. And if the user is interested, they can just click down here and it'll expand upward. They can scroll through just like a Facebook feed. Now, this is actually, if you think about it, more powerful than the actual Facebook feed, because Tenda Burrito, like I said, I love Tenda. Obviously, I'm fanatical about it. I'm also fanatical about Rook Coffee. I'm interested in all of their posts. But actually, it's fairly often people say, hey, are you going to see, there's a Grateful Dead. There's a Grateful Dead cover band in Red Bank, and they're pretty popular, and they're called Dead Bank. They say, hey, are you gonna see Dead Bank on Saturday night at Tenta Burrito? I said, I had no idea they were even playing. All right, and it's because I didn't see them. That post didn't get into my newsfeed. All right, so the thing is, this newsfeed is actually pulling in the latest, regardless of whether Facebook's newsfeed algorithm wanted me to see it or not. It's pulling it all in right here. So if I really wanted to track only the advertisers I was really interested in, and just see things reverse chronologically, I can't even do that on Facebook. I can't do it on Twitter. I can't do it on Instagram. There's no other mechanism for me to even do that. So this feed actually becomes incredibly useful because you can see what what a community is up to. What are the individual members of the community up to? What are they making? What are their specials? Not everything is an advertisement. A lot of times they're actually very relevant informational updates. And kind of in a pretty cool way, this feed also supports video. I don't have an example right here, but here is a video player. what better way to bring the energy that exists at some venues to the end user? So, for example, last night I was driving home late at a meeting, and I was driving by a bar in Red Bank, and it's called Jamien's, and it was really nice temperature. The windows were all open at Jamien's. They had a band on the inside. They're playing something bluesy, and it just sounded so fun and so awesome. I wanted to stop the car and go inside. But if I hadn't driven past Jamien's, how would I ever like get that energy? How would I ever sense that energy? All Jamien's would have to do in this case is take out their iPhone, take some video, post it to Facebook, be like, hey, check out Jamien's. It's reggae night at Jamien's, or it's blues night at Jamien's. Take some video, and then it would show up on Facebook. It would also show up right here. You could click on it, you could play it, you could see exactly what's happening at Jamien's 15 minutes ago. So that's pretty powerful, because a lot of times people tell you like, oh, you have to go see this at this place, or you have to go see this at place. A lot of times, until you actually see it, or unless you like go on YouTube and you find a clip of something, you don't actually know what kind of energy there is. You don't know if it's going to be fun or not. You just have an idea in your head of what it's what it's going to be like, and sometimes that keeps you from doing things. So that's a very powerful thing to put video in this feed. So this, I think, it solves the mobile problem, and maybe not entirely, but it solves it in a big way, because a lot of publishers have a problem with all of their ads get pushed to the bottom of the page in the sidebar. Advertisers don't like it. A few years ago, we used to say that, we used to hear from publishers that 40% of my traffic comes from mobile, right? And it was like 40%. Okay, that's pretty big. Well, now it's like 60% of my traffic comes from mobile, so that number is climbing. And so obviously, mobile is a very powerful thing, and this keeps your advertisers relevant. And you're guaranteed that no matter what device they're on, they're going to get some airtime in terms of the user's eyes. With this newsfeed. So let me check to see if there are any questions. All right. What if an advertiser posts a picture that is very large, many megabytes? Will it end up on our site or our sites? Well, most places that we don't just display the raw image. We actually display a downsized version. So in most cases, the image won't be too large. And for most of our ad formats, we actually do downsize. We actually generate 3 different sized options that our code will use in different cases. So if we need a really high quality photo, sometimes for the cube, for example, someone might upload a 2 megabyte image. We crunch that down, we resize it, and we resize it down to like 800 pixels wide, because in most cases you don't need the full 4,000 pixel wide photo. You just need something 800 pixels at the most. Sounds as if you intend this ad feed to replace all of the other ad types you serve. No. So actually, we see these coexisting because we don't expect that publishers will totally abandon their ad strategy and start using this newsfeed. In fact, we've already heard from some publishers that they're thinking of using this as like a backup plan. So if somebody says no to a standard banner ad, then they pitch them this newsfeed instead. I think it could work for both cases. I think anybody who wants in on the newsfeed, it could be its own thing. Maybe it's for the advertisers who can't afford, don't have the budget that a big advertiser does. I certainly don't want to see it like cannibalize the rest of the ad business. I don't think it has to be structured in that way. I think it is something that can coexist peacefully with a publisher's existing ad setup. Because look, this is reverse chronological. The advertiser doesn't always get to the top. So there is going to be one advertiser who is still interested in being in the leaderboard, who are still interested in being in the sidebar, or maybe they want to be both places. So visibility is an important thing. And, as much as I like the newsfeed, it's kind of like every man for himself. Everyone's fighting for visibility. So, the most recent updates go to the top. So if you want to guarantee visibility, standard ads are still the right way to do it. All right. So that is it. So I guess right now we're a little bit over an hour. So I'll open it up for questions. If there's anything anybody wants me to demo or take a look at or elaborate on, I'd be more than happy to. I don't want to keep anyone longer than they want to be here, I'm sure they would have jumped off if they really wanted to. But if there's any questions, I'll hang around for questions. Thank you for taking the time to jump on the webinar. I know that, like I said, this did run about an hour, still shorter than the other ones, but I know it took up a bunch of your time, but hopefully it was informational, educational, all that stuff. And then if you do have any follow-up questions and you want to ask them here, or you want to ask me by email, Kenny@broadstreetads.com.